On a freezing Christmas Eve, a grieving mother and her daughter face their darkest hour. But when a mysterious act of kindness appears on their doorstep, their lives change forever in the most unexpected way. Stay till the end to witness a heartwarming story of redemption, hope, and the power of compassion. Comments below where you're watching from, and if you like and love our story, kindly subscribe our channel. Life, inspirational, and motivational tales that explore themes of love, unity, and patriotism. Stay with us always for interesting stories. Thanks. Let's start the story. On a frigid December evening, snow blanketed the quiet town, muffling the cheerful sounds of Christmas festivities in the distance. In stark contrast to the festive spirit outside, a small gift shop sat in darkness. Its shattered windows and closed spoke volumes of the tragedy that had unfolded there. Inside, Clara sat on a rickety chair behind the counter, her face streaked with tears. The empty cash register in front of her was a cruel reminder of all she had lost. Lily, her teenage daughter, sat huddled in the corner, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her voice was soft, almost inaudible. "Mom, what are we going to do? Christmas is ruined." The hopelessness in her words hung heavy in the cold air, intensifying Clara's heartbreak. She looked at her daughter, but couldn't find the words to console her. Her shop was her lifeline, and now it was gone. Outside, Jack paused mid-stride as he passed by the shop. His red MAGA hat stood out against the snowy backdrop, the brisk wind tugging at his coat. Through the frosted window, he saw Clara wiping away tears, her shoulders trembling with silent sobs. His gaze shifted to Lily, her small figure huddled in despair. Jack's expression hardened, not with judgment, but with determination. "Not on my watch," he muttered under his breath, his mind already racing with ideas. Jack had faced his share of hardships, and he knew too well the pain of losing everything. As he turned away from the shop, a plan began to take shape in his mind. A plan to restore hope to a family teetering on the edge of despair. On a crisp December evening, the town square shimmered with festive lights, the air alive with laughter and joy. Children bundled in colorful scarves tugged at their parents' hands, begging for sweets and toys from the bustling holiday market. The scent of roasted chestnuts and fresh pine filled the air, wrapping the cheerful crowd in a warm embrace. Amid the celebration, one shop stood out, not for its decorations, but for its silence. Clara's once charming gift shop, now a shell of its former self, sat dark and lifeless, its windows cracked and its sign reading "Closed." Inside, Clara slumped behind the counter, her eyes puffy and red. The shelves that had once been filled with holiday trinkets and lovingly handmade crafts now sat empty, ransacked by thieves who had taken not only her inventory, but her hopes. The savings she had poured into her dream had vanished in a single night, leaving her drowning in debt and despair. Across the room, her teenage daughter Lily sat curled on a stool, hugging her knees to her chest. She glanced at the bare tree in the corner and whispered, "Mom, what are we going to do? Christmas is ruined." Clara looked at her daughter, her heart breaking at the sadness in her voice. She tried to speak, but found herself choked by the weight of her failure. Instead, she lowered her gaze, unable to meet Lily's hopeful eyes. Outside, the cheerful glow of holiday lights barely touched the shadows of their quiet street. Jack, their neighbor, passed by on his way home. His MAGA hat stood out against his rugged coat, drawing glances from those who still associated it with division and misunderstandings, especially from Clara, whose dismissive remarks often reached his ears. "Nada will be parked," he said. "I can grow a beard if you don't mind." But tonight, as he walked past the darkened shop, something caught his attention. Through the broken window, he saw Clara's hunched figure and Lily's defeated posture. Jack paused, his breath visible in the cold air. For a moment he watched, his brow furrowing with concern. He could almost feel the despair emanating from the shop. The sight stirred something in him, a memory of his own struggles, of nights spent wondering how he'd get through the next day. He adjusted his hat, muttering under his breath, "No one should feel this way, especially at Christmas." Clara's bitterness had grown sharper in the weeks since the robbery. She often snapped at Lily's attempts to lighten the mood, unable to process her grief and frustration. Her anger found an easy target in Jack, whose presence reminded her of the differences she held onto so tightly. "What does someone like him know about real struggles?" she'd muttered, ignoring the quiet acts of kindness he often extended to others in the neighborhood. But Lily, with her youthful optimism, refused to give up. She spent her evenings crafting makeshift ornaments from scraps of paper and string, determined to bring a little cheer to their home. "Mom," she said one night, carefully hanging her handmade decorations on the tree's bare branches, "maybe someone will help us. Miracles can happen, right?" she said. Clara scoffed, her voice heavy with sarcasm. "The only miracles are the ones we make ourselves, Lily. Don't waste your hope on things that won't come true." Lily didn't respond, but her faith remained unshaken. She knelt by the tree that night, clasping her hands in silent prayer. "Please, God," she whispered, "help Mom believe again. Help her smile." Jack's own journey had been shaped by hardship. A veteran in his 40s, he had faced the sting of loss, the struggle of starting over, and the pain of being judged for the hat he wore. He had learned to rise above the assumptions, choosing to focus on the values he held dear: compassion, resilience, and community. Passing Clara's shop that night, he couldn't ignore the pull to help. He'd heard Lily's hopeful whispers through the cracked glass, her innocent faith cutting through the bitterness that surrounded him. Sitting at his kitchen table later that evening, Jack began to plan. His modest savings, carefully set aside over the years, would have to stretch. He made a list: groceries, decorations, gifts for Lily, and something special for Clara. As he wrote, his mind drifted to the shop. If she's going to start over, he thought, she'll need more than gifts. The next morning, Jack visited a friend who owned a small construction company. Over steaming cups of coffee, he explained the situation. "I need a favor," he said. "Her shop needs repairs, but she doesn't have the money. I'll cover what I can." The friend nodded, moved by Jack's sincerity. "Considered done. We'll start after Christmas." By the time Jack returned home, his truck was filled with bags of groceries, twinkling lights, and carefully chosen presents. Among them was a sealed envelope containing enough money to help Clara get back on her feet. He spent the evening wrapping the gifts with meticulous care, ensuring each package looked as though it had come straight from Santa's workshop. As Christmas Eve descended, the neighborhood buzzed with excitement. Families gathered, laughter spilling into the frosty air. But at Clara's home, the atmosphere remained heavy. She sat at the kitchen table, her head in her hands, while Lily quietly adjusted the handmade ornaments on their tree. Jack waited until the street was silent before loading the packages into his arms. Wearing his signature MAGA hat, he approached Clara's doorstep. The cold bit at his cheeks as he arranged the gifts, ensuring the envelope was tucked securely beneath the largest box. Stepping back, he took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Then, without waiting, he retreated into the shadows to watch. The door creaked open, revealing Lily's wide-eyed face. Her gasp of surprise broke the silence. "Mom! Come quick! Look!" she called, her voice trembling with excitement. Clara appeared moments later, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief as she took in the sight before her. Lily knelt beside the packages, her hands trembling as she untied the ribbons. "It's a miracle, Mom," she whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. "Someone cares about us. Look." Clara stared at the gifts, her heart caught between gratitude and pride. "Who would do this?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. Clara glanced at Jake. From his hiding place, Jack watched as Lily's joy lit up the small home. A faint smile tugged at his lips. He turned and walked away, the crunch of snow under his boots the only sound in the still night. As Christmas drew closer, Clara's despair deepened, like the freezing chill that seeped through their small home. The once vibrant shop she had poured her heart into now stood as a stark reminder of her failure. It wasn't just the stolen money or the broken windows. It was the loss of hope, of purpose. Clara's bitterness hardened with every passing day. She snapped at Lily more often, her patience frayed by sleepless nights and the haunting realization that she couldn't give her daughter the Christmas she deserved. Excellent en descent, le libre von Werthe. One evening, as Lily sat crafting paper snowflakes to decorate their meager tree, Clara paced the living room. Her frustration boiled over. "Stop wasting your time on that," she said sharply. "It's not going to change anything." Lily looked up, her eyes wide but unwavering. "Mom, I'm not giving up. Christmas is about hope. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there will help us." Exercise 1. Position to weigh an equal. Encouraged to do the picot pattern with a simple lift, Clara scoffed, her voice heavy with cynicism. "Hope doesn't pay the bills, Lily. No one is coming to save us." Unbeknownst to them, Jack stood outside, shuffling through the snow as he walked home. The warmth spilling from other homes contrasted with the dim light emanating from Clara's window. He could hear fragments of their conversation through the thin walls, and Lily's quiet optimism struck a chord in him. Jack paused, his breath visible in the cold night air, and glanced toward their home. He had been in Clara's shoes once, years ago, and knew all too well the pain of feeling forgotten during the holidays. Inside his own small but cozy home, Jack sat at his kitchen table with a steaming mug of coffee. Memories of his own struggles flooded back, nights spent wondering where his next meal would come from, the kindness of strangers that had once lifted him out of despair. Jack resolved to be that beacon of hope for Clara and Lily. "No one should feel alone at Christmas," he murmured. The next day, Jack began his mission. He visited the local supermarket, carefully choosing items that would fill their empty cupboards. Fresh bread, canned goods, a plump turkey. At a small toy store, he picked out a beautifully crafted dollhouse for Lily and a cozy scarf for Clara. He spent hours wrapping the gifts with meticulous care, wanting them to feel special, loved. Jack wasn't done. He called an old friend, a contractor, and explained Clara's situation. "Can you spare a team to fix her shop? I'll cover the costs," he said, his voice firm with determination. His friend agreed without hesitation, touched by Jack's compassion. On Christmas Eve, Jack worked late into the night. He loaded his car with the groceries, gifts, and an envelope containing enough money to help Clara restart her shop. As the town slept, Jack drove to Clara's house, parking a block away to avoid drawing attention. He quietly placed the packages and envelope on their doorstep, arranging them neatly. With a deep breath, he rang the doorbell and retreated into the shadows, watching from a distance. Inside, Clara and Lily had just settled onto the couch when the sound of the bell startled them. "Who could that be at this hour?" Clara muttered as she got up to answer. When she opened the door, the sight before her left her speechless. The porch was filled with beautifully wrapped gifts, bags of groceries, and a thick envelope resting on top. Lily rushed to her side, her face lighting up with joy. "Mom, look, it's a Christmas miracle!" Clara's hands trembled as she picked up the envelope, her skepticism mingling with shock. She opened it, her eyes widening at the stack of bills and a simple note inside. "For a fresh start, Merry Christmas." Lily hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I told you, Mom. Someone cares. God answered my prayers." Clara's voice wavered as she whispered, "But who would do this for us? And why?" She scanned the quiet street, but there was no one in sight. She couldn't bring herself to believe that such generosity had come without motive. Yet she couldn't deny the warmth that began to seep into her guarded heart. From the shadows, Jack watched their reaction with a quiet smile. For him, the sight of Lily's joy and Clara's tentative smile was enough. As he turned and walked away, the crunch of snow beneath his boots was the only sound that accompanied him back to his home. Clara and Lily woke to a Christmas morning that felt like a miracle. Their small living room, once barren and silent, now brimmed with laughter and warmth. Lily tore through the carefully wrapped packages, her joy filling the air. She pulled out toys, a new winter coat, and supplies for school, her face lighting up with every surprise. Clara watched, a mix of wonder and disbelief. The table overflowed with groceries, everything they needed to make a hearty Christmas dinner. For the first time in weeks, the house was filled with life. Clara found herself smiling as she joined Lily in decorating the small tree with the ornaments that had been left on their doorstep. The once lifeless tree now sparkled with lights and colors, a symbol of newfound hope. As she placed the final ornament, her eyes caught the sealed envelope Lily had set aside. It was addressed simply, "Clara." Clara hesitated before opening it, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was a sum of money far greater than she could have imagined, enough not only to cover immediate expenses, but also to begin repairing her shop. Tucked alongside the money was a handwritten note. "For you to rebuild. Everyone deserves a second chance. Merry Christmas." Clara stared at the note, her eyes filling with tears. She reread it, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who would do this for us?" Lily, sitting cross-legged on the floor, looked up from her toys. "Mom, I told you. Someone cares. It's a Christmas miracle." Clara sank into the nearest chair, overwhelmed. The generosity felt like a lifeline, but it also brought a flood of questions. Who could have done this? Why? And how had they known exactly what she and Lily needed? The next day, Clara, still grappling with gratitude and disbelief, decided to visit her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. If anyone knew the comings and goings of the neighborhood, it was her. Clara recounted the mysterious gifts, hoping Mrs. Jenkins could shed some light. Mrs. Jenkins listened intently, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. When Clara mentioned the late-night delivery, Mrs. Jenkins smiled knowingly. "Oh, that would be Jack," she said matter-of-factly. Clara blinked. "Jack? Jack with the MAGA hat? Are you sure?" Mrs. Jenkins nodded, her tone firm. "He was carrying packages late last night. I saw him from my window. That man has a bigger heart than most people give him credit for. He's always helping someone in need." Sighing loudly, Clara's heart sank as guilt washed over her. She remembered every dismissive comment she'd made about Jack, every judgment she'd passed without truly knowing him. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why would he help us? He doesn't even know us like that." Mrs. Jenkins chuckled softly. "That's just who he is. He's been through a lot himself, but instead of letting it harden him, he chooses to give back. He's a good man, Clara." Clara returned home, her mind racing. She felt a mix of gratitude and shame. Jack, the man she had unfairly judged, had been the one to save her and Lily's Christmas. His quiet act of kindness had shattered every assumption she had held about him. Clara knew she couldn't let this go unacknowledged. She had to thank him and apologize. The following day, Clara and Lily walked up the path to Jack's modest home. Clara's hands were clammy, and her heart pounded as she rehearsed what she wanted to say. Lily squeezed her hand reassuringly. "He'll understand, Mom," she said softly. When Jack opened the door, he looked genuinely surprised to see them. "Clara, Lily," he greeted them warmly. "What brings you here?" Clara struggled to find the right words. Her voice cracked as she began. "Jack, I know it was you. The gifts, the money, everything. I don't even know where to start, but thank you. And I'm sorry. I was so wrong about you." Jack's expression softened, and he waved off her apology. "You don't need to thank me or apologize, Clara. It wasn't about me. It was about making sure you and Lily had the Christmas you deserve." Clara wiped at her eyes. "But why? Why would you do this for us?" Jack leaned against the doorframe, his gaze thoughtful. "Because I've been there. I've been in that place where it feels like everything is falling apart. I know how it feels to lose hope. Someone helped me once when I needed it the most, and I promised myself I'd do the same for others when I could." Lily stepped forward, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Jack. You gave us the best Christmas ever." Jack crouched to her level, smiling. "You're welcome, Lily. Just promise me one thing. Never stop believing in the good in people." "I don't," she said, turning away and beginning to send Lily back to her room. As they walked back home, Clara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Jack's kindness had not only restored their Christmas, but had also given her a new perspective. She resolved to let go of her prejudices and focus on the good in people, just as Jack had shown her. That evening, as Clara and Lily sat by their sparkling tree, Clara made a quiet promise to herself and her daughter to pay Jack's kindness forward and to never judge someone without truly knowing them. Clara stood on Jack's doorstep, her heart pounding as she mustered the courage to knock. She had spent the entire night reflecting on the incredible act of kindness that had transformed her family's Christmas. The beautifully wrapped gifts, the groceries that brought life back to their kitchen, and the envelope filled with enough money to rebuild her shop. It was all thanks to Jack. The realization had left her overwhelmed with gratitude and guilt. Lily squeezed her mother's hand, her eyes filled with encouragement. "He deserves to hear how much he's helped us, Mom," she whispered, and ended the call. Finally, Clara knocked. Moments later, the door opened to reveal Jack, his familiar red MAGA hat resting on the nearby table. He looked at her with his usual calm expression, though a hint of curiosity flickered in his eyes. "Clara," Jack said warmly, "what brings you here?" Clara swallowed hard, her voice trembling. I know it was you. You're the one who helped us. The gifts, the money, everything. I've been so wrong about you. I judged you without knowing you, and yet you showed us more kindness than I could have ever imagined. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you." Jack's face softened into a gentle smile. "It wasn't about me, Clara," he said. "It was about making sure you and Lily had the Christmas you deserved. I've been where you are. I know how it feels to lose hope. Someone helped me once when I was at my lowest, and I promised myself I'd pay it forward whenever I could." Tears streamed down Clara's face as she listened. "I don't know how we'll ever repay you," she said, her voice breaking. Jack shook his head. "You don't need to repay me, Clara. Just pass it on. Be there for someone else who needs help. That's all I ask." Lily stepped forward, her young face glowing with admiration. "Mr. Jack," she said softly, "you're like a real-life Santa. Thank you for making Mom smile again." Jack chuckled, patting Lily gently on the shoulder. "You're a special girl, Lily. Keep that hope in your heart, no matter what." Over the next few weeks, Clara's perception of Jack transformed completely. She realized how wrong she had been to judge him based on superficial differences. She began to see the man behind the hat, a kind-hearted, selfless individual who had quietly supported the community in countless ways. Her once cynical outlook began to shift as she embraced the lessons Jack had taught her. Clara decided to share her story with others in the neighborhood. She spoke openly about her prejudice and the incredible kindness that had changed her life. Her honesty inspired others to reconsider their own biases, creating ripples of understanding throughout the community. Lily, deeply moved by Jack's generosity, started volunteering at a local shelter. She wanted to spread the same compassion she had received, helping other families find hope during difficult times. Her youthful optimism became a beacon of light for everyone she encountered. On New Year's Eve, Clara invited Jack over for dinner. Their home, once filled with despair, now radiated warmth and joy. The Christmas tree sparkled with lights and ornaments, and the table was laden with a simple but heartfelt meal. Jack arrived carrying a small gift for Lily, a beautifully illustrated book about hope and resilience. As they gathered around the table, laughter and conversation flowed freely. The barriers that had once divided them were gone, replaced by mutual respect and genuine friendship. Clara raised her glass, her voice steady but emotional. "To second chances and the people who remind us what truly matters," she said, her eyes meeting Jack's. Jack smiled, lifting his glass in return. "To kindness and the strength it gives us all." The evening ended with stories and laughter, but the impact of Jack's actions would last far longer. Clara and Lily's lives had been changed not just by the gifts and money, but by the example of compassion and humility Jack had set. They had learned that true strength lies in understanding and helping one another, and they vowed to carry that lesson forward. It struck midnight, marking the start of a new year. Clara looked around the room and felt a profound sense of gratitude. She realized that Jack's kindness had given her more than just a second chance. It had restored her faith in humanity and taught her the true meaning of community. Clara's story is a testament to the transformative power of kindness and second chances. Her journey from bitterness and prejudice to gratitude and hope resonates with the struggles many of us face. Jack's quiet humility, his unwavering resolve to help, and his willingness to give selflessly inspire us to look at the world with compassion and to break down the barriers of judgment. Have you ever encountered a moment where someone's unexpected kindness changed your life? Perhaps it was a stranger's small gesture or a friend's unspoken support. Share your story in the comments below and let's create a ripple of inspiration, reminding everyone that kindness can bridge even the deepest divides. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting stories that remind us of the beauty of humanity. Together, let's spread hope, foster understanding, and inspire change, one story at a time. Comments below where you're watching from, and if you like and love our story, kindly subscribe our channel. Life, inspirational, and motivational tales that explore themes of love, unity, and patriotism. Stay with us always for interesting stories.